a whole lot. Trial, tribulation, but I know God.
Hey, Reg here, and welcome back to the blog and the return of the Fruitarian. It's day 55 of my 60-day raw food challenge. 5 days left, and I'm pretty excited. One thing I'm excited about, you see I'm in my green added value t-shirt today. Added value is the organization that I'm a volunteer for here in Red Hook. They run a 2-acre farm about 2 blocks from where I live. And next week we're getting all set for our Harvest Festival. So we're going to be bringing the farm season to a close. It's kind of the timing couldn't have been more perfect. The Harvest Festival is the first day after my 60-day raw food challenge, so it'll be kind of symbolic of, you know, what my life as a vegan is going to be moving into the fall and the winter, which is going to be a challenge as someone who lives as a city dweller. So one of the things I want to talk about, one of the things that I love about being a part of an organization like Added Value is that, the way it helps people to understand the food system, to understand what goes into growing and delivering food. But it also it creates this wonderful space to bring people from all walks of life together around something that's just really important to all of us, and that's how we sustain ourselves through what we put in our bodies. I had an incident with a group of people on the farm. I pulled a tomato off of a plant, and I knew what had gone into growing that tomato, so I pulled it off. I was really excited, and I just started eating the tomato, and they were like, "Ew, what are you doing?" And I explained to them that well, this is what food looks like, this is where it comes from. And we got a chance to talk about the difference between food in its natural state and the stuff that they sometimes get at home, or the stuff that they get in their school lunches, or what they can get their hands on just living with the limited resources that we have in our neighborhood, where if you can't afford to go to the really fancy grocery store, or you don't really know about the urban farm, are pretty those options are pretty slim. You can get chicken 24 hours a day though, fried chicken 24 hours a day in Red Hook. And so that is really one of the challenges, and that's how do you get people to connect around these issues, and it really requires having these spaces where people can come together and kind of witness the reality about food, and come to an understanding about the impact of the stuff that we put in our bodies and health. And I think I've talked about the incidents, my experience with young people, going to the funeral of a 10-year-old who died from heart-related disease in this neighborhood. So I understand the importance of that, and I think that's something that I really want to talk about, how sometimes in the vegan movement we think that by showing people sensational images, or by yelling, or whatever, that we're going to impact people, but it really takes time so that people start to have a deeper and emotional connection to these issues. It's sort of like, just if you explain to somebody, what racism is and the impact of race on people, they're not necessarily going to respond to it if you just, come at them with a whole bunch of facts. You really have to, build a relationship with that person before you can start to get in there. What's interesting is that I looked up an interview with Vegan Gains, who talks about his introduction to veganism, and he says, I was I'm not into veganism, but I was interested in it, and I've never heard any great arguments like going vegan until then. Like all vegans I knew were like, oh, you have to end animal suffering and everything. And I was a little disconnected back then. So, Vegan Gains, who's, this animal rights person, talks about hearing the animal rights argument and not being able to connect to it. So this is someone who is highly critical of people who aren't connected to the animal rights issue, but him admitting that he had heard a lot about the animal rights issue and wasn't connected to it. And so then he goes on to say, I saw Gary's video and it just totally flipped things around. Like, he made me get more of an emotional connection than I have ever had before, and I also never knew animal products caused like heart disease, diabetes, cancer, and then I ended up learning about doctors Colin Campbell and Caldwell Esselstyn and stuff like that, and I just right away that day went vegan. So Vegan Gains, talks about how it wasn't until he was able to emotionally connect to it and understand that there were health risks to eating meat that he was able to be transformed and become a vegan. And that's another thing, is also tapping into people's needs. Vegan Gains is someone who clearly is, fixated on his physical appearance, right? And what's physical. So it makes sense that understanding the impact eating meat was going to have on his body is what ultimately shifted him to being, at least based on what he says. I don't know what to say about that, and I don't want to get into a thing. I don't know anything about Vegan Gains, and I'm actually really not that interested, but he's somebody that people follow, and based on that, I'm just bringing him up as an example of someone who wasn't able to connect to the issue of animal rights until he was able to make a connection to something that was meaningful to him personally, which sounds like it was, his body. And it goes on. There are people who are interested in taste, which is why you have this thriving gourmet vegan industry, right? Because it's giving people who are concerned with taste, an option, a viable option. Right, so people who want to be as strong as possible, and so you tell them, go ahead, pack on the carbs. That's how you're going to get the energy that you need to, put on that muscle, or to be able to, ride in that, that bike race. So constantly thinking about, what are people's needs, and to understand what people need, you have to listen to them. You have to listen to them really carefully. And to get them to talk to you in the first place, you likely are going to need to have to build a relationship with them. And that's not something that you can do really on YouTube. You have to get out there in the world and interact with people and set that example that's going to have an impact on them. Like having a group of young people watch you pick a tomato from a tomato plant and eat it. And then after you've had that conversation with them and get them thinking about living in a different way, making sure that the options are there for them so that they can take advantage of that. That's really it. Today I'm going to recommend for all of you a song called Cha-Ching by Chairlift. It's a single that came out just a few weeks ago that I think you'll like. I'm kind of loving it. I've been into like these songs that are just kind of really laid back, that have like a nice driving beat in the background. So I'm gonna offer Chairlift's Cha-Ching as my musical recommendation for the day. That's gonna be it. I hope you guys have an amazing day. This is Reg checking out on day 55 of my 60-day raw food channel. Love yourself. Peace.
And I love myself.
The world is a ghetto, big guns and dick is